The presidential GOAT scheme was introduced under Zimbabwe's Vision 2030 to empower rural communities through livestock distribution. Blackdeck livestock and poultry farming, represented by businessmen Chimombe and Moses Mpofu, won a government tender worth $87 million to supply 85,000 goats. However, investigations revealed that only about 4,000 goats were delivered, leaving a massive shortfall. The government had already paid ZWL $1.6 billion, around $7.7 million for the project. Prosecutors alleged that the duo used forged tax clearance and NSSA certificates to secure the tender, and Blackdeck itself was not properly registered. This revelation sparked outrage nationwide, as the scheme was meant for vulnerable groups like orphans and the elderly. The fraud was described as unprecedented and a betrayal of public trust, undermining efforts to alleviate poverty. The scandal quickly became one of Zimbabwe's most talked-about corruption cases, drawing attention to weaknesses in procurement systems and accountability mechanisms. After months of investigations and a high-profile trial, Chimombe and Mpofu were convicted of fraud and money laundering. The state argued that the crime was conscience-shocking, given its impact on Zimbabwe's poorest citizens. Prosecutor Whisper Mbudzi pushed for a maximum sentence of 35 years, citing aggravating factors such as the scale of the fraud and deliberate use of forged documents. He warned that leniency would undermine the justice system and encourage future corruption. The prosecution emphasized that the duo had frustrated the trial process with unnecessary applications and had shown little genuine remorse until the sentencing phase. Mpofu admitted to using part of the funds to upgrade roads, a dam, and his farm, which prosecutors said demonstrated personal benefit from public resources. Sentencing was scheduled for December 8, 2025, and the nation anxiously awaited the outcome, viewing the case as a litmus test for Zimbabwe's anti-corruption stance. In a tense pre-sentencing hearing, Moses Mpofu broke down and issued a heartfelt apology to President Emmerson Mnangagwa and the people of Zimbabwe. "I want to say to Zimbabweans, I'm sorry, and I regret that the presidential GOAT scheme did not go as planned. An apology has always been on my mind, starting with the president," he said. Mpofu admitted that Blackdeck operated with fake Zimra papers and failed to conduct proper due diligence. He attempted to shift blame onto the company rather than himself personally, claiming, "Court's judgment is final, but it still hurts me because I did not do it. It was Blackdeck." His co-accused, Chimombe, also expressed remorse through his legal team, emphasizing that he was a first offender and had learned his lesson. Both men pleaded for mercy, hoping their contrition would influence the court's decision and reduce their sentences. Alongside their apologies, Chimombe and Mpofu offered restitution to the government. Mpofu admitted he had no personal funds but said, "If the court instructs that, I will see how to go about it." Chimombe's lawyer, Achille Mugia, presented a more concrete plan, stating that his client owned assets worth over $1 million, including an $800,000 Borrowdale home and a Chinhoyi property valued at $120,000. These could be liquidated to compensate the Ministry of Agriculture. Mugia argued that Chimombe was a rags-to-riches businessman, diabetic, and responsible for 15 minor children and 3 wives. He urged the court to consider these factors and his willingness to make amends. However, prosecutors dismissed these pleas, insisting that paying back stolen funds should not absolve offenders from custodial sentences, especially for crimes targeting vulnerable communities. The restitution offer added a dramatic twist to an already sensational case. The apology and restitution offer sparked intense debate across Zimbabwe. Social media platforms were flooded with reactions, with many citizens questioning whether paying back the money should buy freedom for the well-connected elite, while ordinary people serve long sentences for minor crimes. Critics argued that the scandal exposed deep-rooted corruption in government procurement processes and highlighted the lack of accountability among politically connected individuals. Others expressed sympathy for Chimombe and Mpofu, citing their remorse and family responsibilities. However, the dominant sentiment was outrage, with calls for the judiciary to impose a harsh sentence to deter future abuses of public funds. Analysts warned that a lenient ruling could erode public confidence in anti-corruption efforts and undermine President Mnangagwa's Vision 2030 agenda. The case became a litmus test for Zimbabwe's justice system and its commitment to equality before the law. Beyond the courtroom drama, the scandal raised serious questions about governance and oversight in Zimbabwe. Experts pointed to systemic weaknesses in tender processes, noting that BlackDeck secured the contract despite lacking proper registration and presenting fraudulent documents. Professor Lovemore Maduku, part of Chimombe's defense team, argued that the Ministry of Land's tender committee should share blame for failing to conduct due diligence. The case underscored the need for stronger institutional checks and transparency in public procurement. It also highlighted the vulnerability of empowerment programs to exploitation by politically connected elites. As Zimbabwe strives toward Vision 2030, restoring public trust will require not only punishing offenders, but also implementing reforms to prevent similar scandals. Whether Chimombe and Mpofu's apology and restitution offer will mitigate their punishment remains uncertain, but the outcome will resonate far beyond the confines of the courtroom. If the court accepts Chimombe and Mpofu's apology and restitution offer as grounds for leniency, it could set a controversial precedent in Zimbabwe's justice system. Such a decision might signal that high-profile offenders can escape lengthy prison terms by expressing remorse and pledging to repay stolen funds. While restorative justice has its merits, critics argue that this approach risks creating a two-tier system, one for the wealthy and politically connected, and another for ordinary citizens who face harsh sentences for minor offenses. It could also undermine public confidence in anti-corruption efforts, making future prosecutions less credible. On the other hand, supporters might view it as pragmatic, ensuring the state recovers lost resources while avoiding prolonged incarceration costs. Ultimately, the ruling will shape perceptions of fairness and accountability in governance, influencing how similar cases are handled in the future. The Chimombe and Mpofu case has become a defining moment for Zimbabwe's fight against corruption. Their apology and offer to repay stolen funds present a complex dilemma for the judiciary, balancing restorative justice with the need for deterrence. If leniency is granted, it could reshape future corruption trials, for better or worse. Ultimately, the verdict will not only determine the fate of two businessmen, but also signal whether Zimbabwe prioritizes accountability or compromise in its governance reforms. All eyes remain on the court's decision. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.